Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we have quite an interesting beer. This is going to be the first German beer that I'm reviewing for you here in Lund in Sweden. And this is actually the second review I've filmed for this brewery, but it's the first one you're going to see on the channel. The other one is going to be part of a German series that was initially intended for the summer but is now going to be delayed until January. But we're going to revisit Klosterbrauerei Weltenburg, and today we're having a taste of their Oktober Festbier. And I didn't know that they actually did an Oktober Festbier, but then the guy in my local Systembolaget told me that this is an exclusive beer for the Swedish market, which I thought was quite unusual considering it's a German Oktober Festbier, but hey ho, so I guess if it is, I'm quite lucky to be reviewing it for you. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll take you through a bit of a history of the brewery and the monastery that's associated with it. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All of the usual websites are in the video description for you below. The brewery website, the link to my future reviews from Weltenburg, and also the Facebook profile and the Untappd profile. So feel free to connect with me in whatever way you wish. It's always interesting to hear from you guys. But anyway, to tell you about the brewery itself, as you may have guessed, the brewery is attached to the Weltenburg Monastery, which is on the Danube River in Bavaria near the little town of Kelheim. It's almost in the middle of Regensburg and Ingolstadt. But the brewery have a disputed claim with Weihenstephan of being the oldest abbey brewery in the world. These guys were founded in 1050, so they're 10 years younger than Weihenstephan, who were founded in 1040. But Weihenstephan, of course, is no longer a religious organisation. It's owned by the Bavarian state government, and they do still operate out of their abbey, but Weltenburg is still associated with the religious organisation. So I think the claim of being the world's oldest abbey brewery really does stand up for Weltenburger. But the part of the Danube River where this monastery and brewery is located is known to have been home to a Roman military garrison around the year 45 AD, which was called Fort Höfingen. So the monastery was founded in accordance with the rules of St Columba in 617 by Irish and Scottish monks, namely Eustachius and Agilus of Lexio, but in the year 800 it was converted to being a Benedictine monastery. But the monks left at the beginning of the 10th century out of fear of the nomadic Finno-Uric peoples who had laid waste apparently to Italy, Bavaria, Saxony and Swabia. But later in the year 932 the monastery became associated with the bishopdom of Regensburg, and it was then repopulated by members of the St Emmeram's monastery. So the monastery brewery was founded in 1050, and in 1191 the abbey church was consecrated officially, making it part of the wider religious circle. But in the 15th century the abbey suffered due to the way it was run, but reform was introduced modelled on that observed at the Kastel Abbey. So between 1546 and 1547 the Weltenburg monastery was sacked when war broke out in southern Germany between Emperor Karl V and a Protestant alliance, and the monastery was also sacked several times during the 30 Years' War in 1618 and 1648, but it was strongly guided by Abbot Matthias Abelin, and the monastery was also a member of the Bavarian Benedictine congregation, which was founded by Pope Innocent XI in the year 1684. But between 1713 and 1743, Abbot Maurus Buchel built many new buildings in the Weltenburg monastery, and the famous Baroque church of St George was built by the Assam brothers between 1716 and 1739. That, of course, is who the Assam Bock beer is named after from Weltenburg, probably their best known beer in fact. But in 1803 the monastery was dissolved as a result of the secularization in Germany, but in 1858 Weltenburger St Boniface Abbey in München and Andex Abbey were responded by Pope Pius IX, which basically saved them, or kind of reinstated their religious holdings if you like. But the Weltenburg Abbey became a full monastery again in the year 1913, and in 2006 the monastery underwent significant work to protect it from flooding from the Danube River. But today the monastery is home to 14 monks and has been led by Abbot Thomas Maria Freihardt, and I think he's been leading it for quite a few years. But as you can see, a very, very old brewery with a lot of old tradition and a very cool monastery. Somewhere I really do need to go and visit Weltenburg and of course Weihenstephan on my next trip to Germany. That's something that I definitely want to put on my bucket list. But just to list the other beers you can get from Klosterbrauerei Weltenburg, you get the Baroque Dunkel, the Assam Bock, Anno 1050, Dunkelsradler, Naturtrub Bier, Baroque Hell, Urtyp Hell, the Hefeweißbier Hell, Hefeweißbier Dunkel, Weissbier alcohol-frei, Pils and Vintertram. And of course this guy, as I said, is an exclusive for the Swedish market apparently, which is really quite surprising. But anyway, let's get on to the tasting section of this beer. Always interesting to do that for you. But yeah, I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork. So as you can see, this is the Weltenburg monastery symbol there, and you can see on the bottom this is a picture of, or a kind of artwork if you like, of the Weltenburg monastery next to the Danube River, and you can see on the top there again the Weltenburg symbols, and it is on the bottle cap too. But this guy is apparently, it's quite highly rated. It's supposed to be a really nice one of the better Oktober Fest beers apparently. So let's give this guy a try and see how we get on. It comes in, I believe it was 5.6%? Yes, or 5.3%, sorry. So this guy is an Oktober Fest Märzen, and as I told you, it's brewed exclusively for the Swedish market. So let's get this one open and get on with the tasting. So as you can see, a nice smoky opening as we get this guy out. Unfortunately, I don't have a German tankard, so my little Lundebrigeriet tulip glass is going to have to suffice for this review, but it doesn't really affect the flavour of the beer much, just kind of the head formation if you like, so shouldn't make too much of a difference. But you can smell the nice the kind of Märzen characters of this beer coming out just as it pours. Yeah, really quite nice actually. But as you can see, I'll just bring the light over and let you see that it's poured a really nice kind of deep orangey amber colour. It's got a good kind of typical German head on it, just under 2 fingers, frothy white head, maybe a little bit of a creamy colour, but not much actually visible in the way of carbonation from this beer, which is quite unusual, I have to admit. But my German flatmate Toby actually told me that the Oktoberfest beers do tend to be quite high in alcohol, so they're normally about 10% in Munich, but apparently for the export versions they scale them down to 5%, so they're a bit cheaper for people to buy, and basically a kind of way of promoting German beer, so quite cool in that regard. But as you can see, the beer is kind of completely transparent, and yeah, a rich kind of dark orangey amber colour for this one, and a finger of, it was nearly 2 fingers of a frothy white head. So let's give it a smell and see how we get on here. So as I was saying, this is quite a malt forward beer on the nose, this one. So you've got some nice grainy character in this beer. It is a little bit bready, but there's a good bit of a kind of biscuity sweetness and some richer caramel in there as well. And it's slightly toasty, I would say, but definitely malt forward on the aroma. And you can pick up a typical kind of German noble hop in there. So there's a bit of floral and grassy character coming out, and also just a little bit of earthiness. But yeah, very nice smelling beer, I have to admit. So quite malt forward, as I said, bit of caramel and biscuity sweetness coming out of it, a good bit of bread and some kind of grainy character, almost like a German rye bread note coming off this one, but there's a good bit of kind of biscuity and caramel sweetness in there on top of that, and it is slightly toasted, and there is also a kind of German noble hop on this beer, so really quite nicely done, I have to admit. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this guy. So this is the Oktoberfest beer from Klosterbrauerei Weltenburg, which apparently is an exclusive to the Swedish market. So skål and prost! Now that's really quite nice actually, very smooth and very typically German, which is an odd thing to say in a beer review, but it really is. As the aroma would make you think, it's quite malt forward, this one, and you can pick up just a little bit of booziness in this beer. But there's a really nice malt base in this one. It's got a nice big sweet caramel and biscuity character to it, and that just blankets the middle of the tongue. Underneath that though, you do have a little bit of pale malt in there, German pale malt, but on top of that there's a bit of a kind of thicker, more grainy, bready quality to this one, but it's the caramel sweetness and the biscuity, sort of syrupy, biscuity, grainy flavours in this one really are quite prominent in the flavour. Really nicely done actually. Yeah, really nice beer this, I have to admit. Yeah, really beautiful actually. The malt base in this really it's typically German, but it's done exceptionally well, if that makes sense. So it's one of the, it has everything you would expect from a nice kind of German Munich beer, and it's actually in a way it's a bit like a kind of amped up Munich Helles in a way. I would say that's a good way to describe it, but the malt base in this, especially the caramel and the biscuit flavours, is really, really nice. It works very well with that kind of slightly grainy German bread character that you get from these beers. But yeah, really interesting, that one. It's not very hop forward actually. I thought from the nose it was going to have a good bit of noble hop character coming out, and then that would balance a bit, but it does remain, as you progress through the beer a bit, it does stay quite malt forward, I would say. You do have a nice little bit of German noble hop character in there. At the very back corners of the palate there is quite a nice smooth earthy character, and around the edge of the tongue there it's a very smooth grassiness. It doesn't really get kind of floral and aromatic and dry so much, maybe a little bit on the front curve of the tongue, but mainly a nice sort of nice just smooth grassy character, just a little bit dry but nothing too serious. It's more of a malt forward beer, this one, and it works really, really well, I have to admit. But yeah, that's really nice. The thing in the flavour with this one that you'll notice is it does have a little bit more alcohol warmth to it in comparison to some of the other beers that I've had from Munich, of course. Some of the Helles beers, it does have just a little bit more of a boozy character to it. I think most German beers, if I remember rightly, are about 4.5% roughly, so this is a bit stronger for a sessionable beer from Germany, if I remember correctly, but it's beautifully done. The malt base on it, as I say, works really well, and of course that's what they use mainly to kind of mask some of these more boozy flavours, if you like. But in terms of the mouthfeel, this, like I said, very, very smooth. Kind of push, I would say it's more mid-bodied because there is a little bit of alcohol warmth to it. The carbonation is really quite smooth, but it does come in with a little bit of an attack to it, but that helps bring out some of the kind of florally aromatic characters and a bit of the earthiness to it as well. So it's really quite nice, I have to admit. So a nice earthy and grassy hop character from the hoppy part of the beer, I should say. Just a little bit of dryness on the very kind of front of the tongue, but you'll notice a little bit of an oily bubble in this beer too, which is a nice kind of caramel. That's where you get a nice little bit of the caramel flavours in this, and there is perhaps just a wee bit of a fruitiness to this beer, but very, very light. It is mainly a grassy and a very smooth grassy and slightly earthy hop you're getting from this beer, but really nicely done, this one. I would definitely drink this again, and it's a shame if it is only an exclusive for the Swedish market. I feel quite privileged to have tried it, but at the same time it's a shame because it is really quite a nice and quite sessionable German beer. So overall, I would say if you enjoy German beers and you like Oktoberfest, which they kind of go hand in hand, I would say this is one that you do want to check out. I'm not sure, I really don't know whether that's true that it's only available in Sweden, so if some of you are watching the video, please let me know from Germany if you do actually get this beer down there. I'd be surprised if they didn't sell it at the monastery, so please let me know about that, it would be interesting to know. But overall, this is a really nice beer from Klosterbrauerei Weltenburg, one of the second oldest brewery in the world, and they do produce some top quality beers. The Assam Bock is probably the most common one, and I've seen it in Japan and had it in Japan. Very popular beer, and it's absolutely beautiful. So do try some of the Klosterbrauerei Weltenburg beers, and hopefully I can review some more in the near future, and you will see that Assam Bock review appear in January, so do be sure to check that out when it comes. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been really cool to do another one from Klosterbrauerei Weltenburg, my first one of course that you're going to see on the channel. So as always, let me know in the comment section below your own thoughts on this beer. Always interesting to hear from you guys. There will be another beer review for you in about 2 days time, so in the meantime please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. There'll be more German reviews for you coming up, so I hope you enjoy them, and skål just now from Sweden and Slange from Scotland. Skål.